We were just watching the news break here, and we were just talking about the reactor and the reaction of the press. It's out of control. You know, they said that we should make sure we buy those iodine tablets. This is the Surgeon General. It's 1/1000th the level of radiation that Chernobyl had coming across Europe. 1/1000th. Why, when there's so many other things to focus on in Japan? Michael Oslin, he is the director of Japan Studies at the American Enterprise Institute, and Norio Nishi is here. He's Japanese national living in America. And I want to spend a couple of minutes here just talking about what we can learn from Japan and why we're seeing the things that we had. There's nintai. Is a concept that I had never heard about. What is nintai?
Yes, nintai has been developed by the Japanese samurai class. As you know, Japan has been ruled by the samurai class for 1,000 years. The key concept of samurai lifestyle is nintai. Nintai means endurance, perseverance, steadfastness. You do not, when you confront with the danger, when you confront with the calamity, you don't shout, yell, and lose your head. You just take the pain. You just go forward. And that is the kind of attitude or lifestyle that the samurai people developed that permeate every single aspect of the Japanese society. That's what the nintai is all about.
It is. Would you agree that we used to have this? Because it's honorable. We're asking, I actually read people's blogs and heard people on TV saying, why is there no looting? Because there's no honor in that. And doesn't it say something about us that we're asking that question?
I think we used to have that idea of you know, when we're opening up the West, and you'd have the endurance of the pioneers and settlers. And I don't think it's necessarily lost, but I think it's always been a part of Japan. There's another side of it, too, that's, I think, equally important that developed. You know, the samurai ruled Japan for about 700 years. And this other side is this tension between what they called duty and obligation. Duty is what you had to do legally. It's you know, if you were a samurai, you had certain things you had to do, and the law bound you. Obligation were your relations with your fellow man, and they were often in tension. And the most famous story in Japan is something, I mean, probably everyone here has heard of, the 47 Ronin, the 47 samurai, where they wanted to avenge what they thought was the unlawful death of their lord. But they weren't allowed to do it according to duty. It was illegal. So they had to choose what to do. They chose obligation, but they didn't run away from the duty, meaning they chose it knowing that if they were successful in repaying the honor of their lord, upholding his honor, they would go to their deaths by the legal system. And they chose to do that. They had to somehow bring the two together. But what they didn't do was attempt, for example, to say, well, it wasn't, you know, we weren't doing that, it wasn't our fault. And this idea of duty and obligation, I think, has helped shape.
That is kind of like Allen West. When he went, Congressman Allen West, he was questioning a terrorist, knew that this terrorist had information that was going to get all of his troops killed. So he went in and he threatened the guy, and he said, I know you Americans, you'll never do it. He fired a shot right by the guy's head, scared him to death, knew that it was wrong, and got the information, and then went right directly to his commanding officer, put his gun down and said, what I did was wrong, I did it, and I'd do it again, but I want you to know. That's the duty and the honor. Do you We've changed. I walked out. Were you here yesterday for St. Patrick's Day?
No.
Yes.
Were you guys here yesterday for Saturday? Yes. Have you seen things on the streets yesterday from like 18, 19-year-olds that you've never seen before? I mean, it was like a porn show. Some of it, wasn't it? I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I'm walking down the streets, and I'm seeing this after I've been all day looking at Japan and everything else, and I couldn't believe the difference. Can we get there?
You know, Glenn, you asked about, you know, why do Japanese act this way? And New York's really crowded. But in Japan, you've got 125 million people. They're living in a country the size of Montana. but they can only live in 20% of Montana because the rest of the country is too mountainous and forested. So throughout history, they've been packed together. They know that you cannot simply have license to act as you want, that there are rules that will make living much more civilized.
That doesn't happen in New York. There's also something else.
Yeah, something I would say, the culture of haji, which means shame. You know, universally, everybody knows stealing or looting is wrong thing. But if you commit such a crime, in Japan, you are not only responsible to what you did, but your ancestors, your descendants, your relatives, your children, their names are stained.
Yeah.
And the shame, this losing face.
That is the problem. I saw no shame yesterday. No shame. Let me ask you this. Tell me the number of... Compare the number of attorneys, because I think this is big, a number of attorneys in Japan.
Well, let me tell you, I'm nothing against attorneys or lawyers.
No.
Okay.
Some restrictions do apply.
But I understand some reports indicate that the U.S. has 30 times more lawyers than Japan has per capita here. So, but lawyer or court of law assume that everybody thinks that I'm right, you are wrong. So they are the battleground here. You know, in other words, you are just talking about your own self-interest, self-gratification, and the other guy feels the same way. But the concept of shame, or even another concept, which is called omoyari.
Hold on just a second. We have to take a break. Back in a second. He is a Japanese national that has lived in this country for about 20 years, and we were talking about the difference between even just our legal systems here. And you were just about to get to a really important point, the difference between us. What is it?
Yes, so it is the concept of omoyari in Japan, that the virtue, meaning you have to give the utmost regard and respect to your neighbors, to others, transcending your own interests, your own needs and wants. But in the modern legislative society, it becomes the other way around.
It's all about me.
It's about me, my right, my wants, my needs.
All right, I want to switch gears here because we've been following the Japanese story, I think, in a different way this week than everyone else, and we've also been following a different story of the Fogel family. This is a story that is amazing to me, and you don't find it anywhere. I am struck by the good versus evil of this story. In Israel, terrorists killed a father as he slept in bed after Shabbat dinner. They stabbed and cut the throat of his 3-month-old infant in his arms. The daughter, who was lying next to him in bed, his wife, was brutally murdered as she exited the bathroom to hear, and she put up a fight. The terrorists went on to kill 2 more sons, stabbing them to death. It was a brutal, brutal scene. I have seen the photos. One of these children was 4 years young, the other 11. Fogel's 12-year-old daughter came home to this horrific scene, and 2 of her brothers were spared from death because they were hidden in the darkness. In the ultimate sign of strength, the 12-year-old Tamar swore to be a mother to her surviving siblings. The grandfather went on to give this beautiful talk about how we cannot be angry or look for revenge. And a little girl showing incredible strength as the Palestinians then celebrated. They were passing candy out in the streets, honoring this horrible act of terrorism. Candy. There is a powerful darkness growing. But as I have told you before, I grew up in Seattle, so I know, noonday, when the sun can be at its brightest, there are clouds up there. Shadows aren't quite so dark, but when the sky is clear, the shadows become very, very dark. The shadows become black. It's as the sun is at its full brilliance that you notice it. And you have a choice. Are you part of the light or the dark? You can stand in the light or the dark. Lightness, I warn you, will always win. It may be a tough slog to get there, but light destroys darkness. Darkness can never destroy light. Our greatest physicists could come into this room and they cannot open up anything that will bring darkness into this room. One of the cameras show all the lights. Nothing can bring darkness into this room. Nothing. But I can send my daughter down to the Home Depot, give her $6, and she can bring light into a dark room. Turn off the lights. Turn them all the way off. For $5 or $6, you can pierce the darkness. But it doesn't work the other way around. I will show you, beginning next, on how you can be a symbol of light in growing darkness. Next. I just told you the story of a horrific violence against the Fogel family in Israel. Dark, dark act. But I'm going to ask you now to become a symbol of light and make a choice tonight in the face of darkness. Rabbi Joseph Posnick is the executive vice president of the New York Board of Rabbis, and he is here with me. Rabbi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for doing this.
Explain the candle.
There is a statement in the book of Proverbs that the soul of a person is like the candle of God, that through light, we give light to others. You can take one candle and light many others, and in no way does it diminish the integrity of that one candle. And that person also can bring light and love to many others and still remain an independent individual. So the Fogel family began the Sabbath with the kindling of light, and now we're lighting a candle in their memory.
Okay. Tonight I would like to ask you, because there is another tradition that is not just on the Sabbath, but when someone passes, that you light the candle. Tonight is the week anniversary of the Fogel family's death, and also it was a week ago today, wasn't it? The earthquake hit, wasn't it? Yeah, a week ago today. How many thousands of people have died? I would like to ask you, as a viewer, to gather your family together tonight and to light a candle and explain to your children what you're doing, why you're doing it. You obviously don't have to explain the brutal details of the Fogel family, but if they're old enough, you should. But light a candle and make the choice today, to bring light into the world. Normally you say a prayer.
Yes, you do. One of the statements we say is, may God grant you comfort and sustain you amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We say that at the completion of a mourning period. And lighting the candle says, now we have to go back, resume our lives, and restore some of the light in this dark world. And there'll be many people who'll be lighting candles for the Sabbath, and this week lighting an additional candle for the Fogel family.
The darkness that, I can't even begin to fathom the Fogel family story and how it's not getting coverage. You feel the growing darkness. Do you feel the growing light?
Yes, I do. I do see people who are making a difference. I see how our community responds to this tragedy. You spoke of the Japanese courage during a difficult time. And I'd like to think that we have a responsibility to remind our children that there are many decent people there.
Light a candle tonight. Do it for a reason. Back in a minute. From New York, good night, America.